The plains' last thunder, little Bighorn's triumph, and the doom it unleashed. They shattered Custer's golden dream, but the echo of their victory was a death knell they couldn't hear. June 25, 1876. The sun blazed over the greasy grass, a shimmering haze rising from the Montana hills, where the earth would soon drink deep of blood. The air buzzed with an electric hum war cries, the thunder of hooves, the sharp crack of gunfire. Over 1,800 warriors, Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, Arapaho surged as one, a tidal wave of painted faces and flashing steel. 5 Lakota bands, Hunkpapa, Oglala, Minneconjou, Sans Arc. Blackfeet stood shoulder to shoulder with their allies, a coalition forged in desperation and defiance. Their target, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, the flamboyant cavalryman whose arrogance had led him straight into their jaws. By dusk, the battlefield was a graveyard. Custer and 267 of his 7th Cavalry lay sprawled across the slopes, scalped, broken, their blue uniforms torn to rags. 758 carbines glittered in the fading light, abandoned amid the carnage. The smell of gunpowder clung to the grass, thick and acrid, mingling with the copper tang of blood. For the Plains Indians, it was a triumph beyond imagining, the greatest blow struck against the white invaders since their ships first gouged the eastern shores. Sitting Bull, the Hunkpapa holy man, stood atop a rise, his piercing eyes scanning the chaos below. Months earlier, he danced under the sun until visions flooded his mind, soldiers tumbling from the sky, their bodies piling like locusts at his feet. Now that prophecy breathed in the smoke and screams around him. Crazy Horse, the Oglala warlord, with wildfire in his veins, rode through the victorious ranks, his war bonnet trailing feathers like a storm cloud. 2 Moons, the Northern Cheyenne chief, gripped his lance, his weathered face unreadable, as he watched warriors drag fallen foes from their mounts. The survivors, Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Benteen, fled like rats, scrambling to defensive ridges miles away, their men trembling behind makeshift barricades. The native force could have chased them down, crushed the last gasps of the 7th Cavalry into the dust. But the warriors turned inward, their voices rising in a chant that shook the earth, a song of vengeance fulfilled. Teepees glowed with firelight as the night deepened, the massive camp of 8,000 souls pulsing with life. Yet beneath the celebration, something stirred. A shadow healed Niemand Wolte, Benin. Sitting Bull stepped away from the revelry, his moccasins silent on the trampled grass. He crouched by a smoldering fire, his voice low, almost lost in the wind. This is no victory. More will come, more than the stars, more than the buffalo we've lost. They'll drown us in their numbers. The warriors nearby laughed, brushing off the old man's gloom. Crazy Horse spat into the dirt, his eyes blazing. Let them come. We'll paint the plains red again. But Sitting Bull's words hung like a curse, and the first cracks were already splitting the earth beneath them. By morning, the camp stirred uneasily. The alliance forged in blood and fury couldn't hold. The buffalo, once a sea of black horns stretching to the horizon, were gone, slaughtered by white hunters until only whispers of herds remained. 15,000 horses grazed the valley bare, their ribs showing through matted hides. Hunting parties rode out at dawn, returning with empty hands and haunted eyes. The land couldn't feed them all, not 8,000 mouths. Not for long. 2 Moons gathered his Cheyenne, his voice sharp as he pointed north. The Powder River still has game. Bear Butte calls us home. Crazy Horse turned east, his scouts whispering of army columns, creeping closer, ghosts in blue, their steel glinting in the distance. Sitting Bull led his Hunkpapa toward the Yellowstone, his steps heavy with a dread he couldn't shake. The Minneconjou, Sans Arc, and others drifted apart, each band chasing survival in a world that was shrinking around them. What had been the mightiest gathering of Plains tribes in history dissolved like smoke. And in that moment of fracture, the trap was set. Far to the east, in Washington, D.C., a storm was brewing. News of Custer's fall crashed through the nation like a cannon blast. Newspapers churned out tales of savage butchery, their pages dripping with ink and outrage. Custer's golden curls became a martyr's crown, plastered in every saloon and parlor. The public howled for revenge, their voices a tidal wave of hate. Politicians, once reluctant to fund endless Indian wars, now clawed over each other to pour gold into the Army's hands. General Philip Sheridan received the dispatch in his Missouri headquarters, his jaw tightening as he read. The man was a machine cold, calculating, his heart forged in the fires of the Civil War. He stormed into General William Tecumseh Sherman's office, slamming the paper onto the desk. "Custer's dead, and they'll pay for it," he growled. "We'll hit them with everything we've got." Terry, Crook, Gibbon, 2,500 men, fresh and armed to the teeth. "This ends in blood." Sherman, his eyes like flint, nodded. "Make it quick. Make it final." Back on the plains, the scattered bands didn't feel the noose tightening, not yet. Summer faded into autumn, and the first chill winds carried a new sound. The distant tramp of boots, the creak of supply wagons, the clatter of rifles being loaded. Sheridan's columns fanned out like wolves, their orders carved in ice. Find them, break them, leave nothing standing. The northern Cheyenne, under 2 moons, reached the Powder River. Now, that prophecy breathed in the smoke and screams around him. Sitting Bull's hung papa camped along the Yellowstone, their fires low, their children's cries piercing the night as rations dwindled. Crazy Horse roamed the Little Missouri, his warriors gaunt but defiant, unaware that the Army's net was closing in from 3 sides. Then winter came, a beast of snow and ice, its jaws snapping at the plains. And with it came Colonel Nelson A. Miles, Sheridan's deadliest weapon. General Crook ordered his arrest. He was a predator, methodical and relentless. His 5th Infantry, clad in new wool coats and armed with Springfield rifles that spat death with surgical precision. Telegraph lines hummed with his orders. Heliograph mirrors flashed signals across the frozen wastes. On December 18, 1876, Miles tracked Sitting Bull to a snowbound valley near the Yellowstone. The Hunkpapa camp was a flicker of life in a white void, tippies sagging under drifts, ponies shivering, warriors clutching frostbitten hands. Miles didn't strike, not yet. He demanded a parley, riding out alone, his breath steaming in the 20-tenant air. Sitting Bull met him, a towering figure in a buffalo robe, eagle feathers stark against the gray sky. "Your war's over," Miles said, his voice cutting through the wind. "Bring your people in, or watch them die out here." Sitting Bull's gaze was a blade. "You've broken every promise your tongue ever shaped. God made me an Indian, not a beggar in your cage." The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Then a shot rang out, nervous fingers on both sides, a spark in the powder keg. No one died, but the damage was done. That night, 40 of Sitting Bull's people slipped away, their silhouettes fading into the blizzard. 2 weeks later, 160 more followed, their will shattered by hunger and cold. The holy man stood alone, his dream unraveling. Farther south, General George Crook hunted the Cheyenne with a vengeance. On November 25, his scouts' reservation turncoats led him to Chief Dull Knife's village along the Powder River. The attack came at dawn, the air a brutal 30 Ceph, frost cracking under boots. Soldiers stormed the camp, their rifles blazing as tippies erupted in flames. Women screamed, clutching children. Warriors fell, their blood freezing in the snow. By midday, 40 Cheyenne lay dead, 173 lodges reduced to ash. Sacred buffalo robes, medicine bundles, war bonnets, centuries of spirit burned in a pyre that lit the sky. The survivors were herded south, a 500-mile death march to Oklahoma. 50 perished, their bodies left for the crows. Back in Washington, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the final blow, a decree tying survival to submission. Food rations flowed to the reservations, but the price was everything. Hunting rights, the Black Hills, freedom itself. The buffalo are finished. An official sneered at a delegation of chiefs. You're ours now. Spotted Tail, the brutal titan, trembled with fury. You choke us with starvation and call it mercy, he roared. But his people's empty bellies forced his hand. He signed, and the sacred hills slipped away. The army played its dirtiest game, yet pitting Lakota against Lakota. Red Cloud, the pragmatic giant, was deposed. Spotted Tail, broken but compliant, was propped up in his place. Warriors who'd fought at Little Bighorn now donned army coats, trading honor for bread. Why fight your own? A young warrior demanded of an older scout. The man adjusted his Winchester, his voice a whisper. Winter's coming. My kids are hungry. You'll see. Crazy Horse, the last wildfire, flickered in the dark. 758 carbines glittered in the fading light, abandoned amid the carnage. He vanished into the wilderness with his wife, seeking a vision in a blizzard that howled like the spirits had abandoned him. For 3 days, he fasted, his cries swallowed by the storm. No answers came. When he staggered back, frostbitten and hollow, his warriors met him with despair. Ironhawk pointed to skeletal children in tattered hides. Look at them, he rasped. We're finished. On May 6, 1877, Crazy Horse rode into Fort Robinson, 889 shadows trailing him, their war cries replaced by the shuffle of defeat. The reservation crowd wept, soldiers smirked. He'd been promised a reservation west of the Black Hills, a chance to hunt buffalo one last time. Lies. The army had other plans: a cell in Florida's dry Tortugas, a waterbound tomb for a man of the plains. The betrayal came swift and sharp. On September 5, a mistranslation twisted his words. I'll fight the whites north into a death sentence. I'll kill all white men. General Crook ordered his arrest. Crazy Horse fled, riding 40 miles to Spotted Tail's agency, his uncle's cold rejection a dagger to his chest. You'll obey me here, Spotted Tail snapped, turning him away before a stunned crowd. With nowhere left, he surrendered to Lieutenant Jesse Lee's escort. At Fort Robinson, the trap snapped shut. The parade ground bristled with tension. Red Cloud's painted warriors, cavalry with loaded rifles. Captain Kennington seized him, barking, "You're mine now." As they shoved him toward the guardhouse, Crazy Horse broke free, a knife flashing in his hand. He slashed Little Big Man, a turncoat ally, blood spraying the dirt. "Stab him," Kennington roared. Private William Gentles lunged, his bayonet plunging into Crazy Horse's back through kidney, through lung. The warrior screamed, collapsing in a crimson pool. Surgeon Valentine McGillicuddy fought through the chaos, but the wound was a death sentence. Crazy Horse refused a cot, clawing at the bare floor as his life ebbed. "Why did they stab me?" he gasped, over and over, his voice fading. At 11:00 p.m., he whispered to his father, "Touch the clouds. Tell them I'm no use now." His body went still, wrapped in a blanket, and spirited to a secret scaffold lost to history. Sitting Bull, exiled in Canada, heard the news and growled, "We're the last flames." Soon, only ashes. Within 5 years, the Plains tribes were shackled to reservations. The buffalo a memory, their world a graveyard of broken promises. Little Bighorn's triumph wasn't Custer's end. It was theirs. A victory so bright, it blinded them to the abyss yawning below. What secrets died with Crazy Horse? What visions did Sitting Bull see in his final exile? The greasy grass still whispers, taunting us with questions of fate, betrayal, and a future forged in blood.